My parents told me I wasn't welcome at my mom's birthday. They said my sister's boyfriend was more important than me. But what they didn't know, I was the one paying every single bill that kept their house alive. When I stopped, everything collapsed. Like and share if you think family should never treat their own this way. I got uninvited from my mom's birthday because I didn't look good next to my sister's boyfriend. Turns out, I was actually his boss. My dad looked me in the eye and said, "If you still insist on coming home, don't call me your father." 3 weeks later, the power, water, and internet in their house all shut off on my mom's birthday. Follow my story, you might see yourself in it. I'm Ethan, 30 years old, living in a small town about 40 minutes from Seattle. Every morning, I brew a cup of coffee, check the weather, and drive less than 10 minutes to work. I co-founded a small tech company, Pacific Green Tech, focused on sustainable energy. Most people, including my family, don't really get what I do. They think I spend my days tightening screws or fixing machines, which I don't mind. I've never felt the need to explain. When people ask about my family, my parents, David and Susan, or my sister, Lauren, I give a small smile and say, "It's been a while since we talked." And that's it. I'm not hiding anything, but I don't see the point in rehashing it anymore. I haven't spoken to them in over 2 years, no calls, texts, holidays, or birthdays. Nothing. Just a long, quiet stretch, like a cord between us was cut, and no one bothered to fix it. I used to think family was everything. But 2 years ago, on my mom's birthday, everything changed. 3 weeks before her birthday, I'd booked a trip and taken time off work. The plan was simple: go home early, stay a few days, help with preparations, like every other year. Nothing fancy. I just wanted to let them know. I called my mom, Susan, but my dad, David, picked up after 2 rings. "I'll be home 2 days early," I said casually. "If there's anything you need me to pick up or help with, let me know." His response was vague at first, then he hesitated. When he finally spoke, his voice was heavier than usual, like he was dodging something. "Ethan, if you can, maybe don't come home this year." I thought he was just worried about my schedule. "It's fine, Dad," I said, holding a steaming coffee mug. "I've got everything sorted. It's no trouble." The pause was longer this time. Then he spoke again, firmer, colder. "Lauren's bringing her boyfriend home this year. He's a manager, someone important. Speaks well, carries himself properly. And your job? Well, it's not exactly comfortable to talk about. So, it's best if you don't come." Heat crept up my neck, my face flushing. My heartbeat quickened, and I gripped my coffee mug tighter. "What the hell did you just say?" I blurted, unable to keep my voice steady. "Are you seriously saying that to me right now?" He didn't back down, didn't soften. Instead, he doubled down, his voice sharp and flat. "You coming home would just embarrass the whole family. If you insist on coming, don't call me your father." And then he hung up, no hesitation. I set the phone down. My hand was shaking, sweaty. The apartment was dead silent, no TV, no footsteps, just me standing there, staring into space, like I'd been ripped out of my own life. His words echoed in my head, slow and clear, like a loop stuck on repeat. "You coming home would just embarrass the whole family. If you insist on coming, don't call me your father." For a second, I wondered if I'd misheard, but no. Every word was cold as ice, solid as stone. No slip of the tongue, no room for hope. My jaw clenched, my throat tightening like something was stuck there, refusing to budge. Memories flooded back. For over 2 years, I'd quietly paid their bills, power, water, internet. No one ever mentioned it, and now they were calling me the family's shame. I grabbed my phone, hands still trembling, though my mind was starting to clear. I opened my banking app and scrolled through my transaction history, needing to see the numbers. Power bill, water bill, internet, every month, without fail, automatically deducted from my account. For 2 years straight, nearly $400 a month, no missed payments. I scrolled to the total, $9,842.17. I stared at that number for a few seconds. Not because I was shocked, but because something in my chest settled, not grief, not even anger, just an empty calm. Nearly $10,000, and they called me the family's shame. As I looked at the long list of transactions, a quiet question hit me, one my family had never asked in 30 years. Has Lauren ever done as much for our parents as I have? Not out of jealousy or wanting credit, but if I'm the family's shame, who's the standard? I'd paid nearly $10,000 for their living expenses, quietly, without asking for anything, without ever bringing it up. What about her? Had she ever sacrificed, scrambled, or begged for help? Or did she just show up, smile pretty in a nice dress, and impress everyone with her successful boyfriend? I wasn't keeping score. I was asking because, for the first time, I realized fairness was never part of this family. I'd grown used to standing on the sidelines since I was a kid. In family photos, I was often half hidden behind someone or caught at the edge of the frame, never quite looking at the camera. No one told me to step aside, but I always did. Lauren was the center of every big moment, birthdays, graduations, even her breakups. There was always a reason for everyone to rally around her, to console or celebrate her. I can't remember the last time someone asked if I was okay. Lauren's 2 years older than me, but the gap was never about age. She was the hope, the future, the child our parents bragged about when relatives came over. Me? If I came up at all, I was a footnote. Ethan, oh, he's fine. Works in tech, I think. I used to think if I worked hard enough, stayed out of trouble, and handled everything quietly, they'd see me. They didn't. When you're used to being invisible, no one notices when you're gone. I started covering their utilities, power, water, internet, about 2 years ago. It began with a call from Susan. She complained about the rising cost of living, how that month's bills had spiked, how their retirement income wasn't enough anymore. Then, softly, hesitantly, she said, if you could help, even a little, it'd mean a lot. I agreed, thinking it'd be a few months until things stabilized. But the months kept coming, each one the same. No one mentioned stopping, no backup plan. Sometimes I'd ask, is Lauren helping out at all, Mom? She dodged the question. Sometimes it was, just help us this month. Your sister will pitch in next time. Other times, Lauren's covering Dad's medical stuff. That's not easy either. I heard those lines so often I could recite them. And every time, I'd smile, let it go, knowing none of it was true. So, I kept sending the money, $400 a month, steady, quiet, no complaints. No one mentioned it. I didn't mind. I thought it was the right thing to do. I believed if I was quiet and responsible enough, they'd notice. But after everything, they looked at me and said I was the family's shame. That night, sitting on my couch, everything went still. I wasn't angry or heartbroken anymore. There was just one clear feeling in my chest, enough. I opened my banking app, went to the automatic payment section, power, water, internet, and canceled each one, no hesitation. Not to get revenge, but to protect the one thing I had left, a shred of self-respect, the only thing they hadn't taken. A week later, I got the first message from Susan, in that same gentle tone she always used. No mention of what happened, no apology. Just, the internet bill is due. Can you take care of it? I read it, stared at the screen for a moment, and set the phone down without replying. Not to make a point, but because the first thing they thought to say after everything was a demand, pay the internet bill. No, are you okay, or even a simple, can we talk? So, I stayed silent. That silence said everything. 2 weeks later, David called. The phone rang a few times, then stopped. I didn't answer. Minutes later, a voicemail, his tone sharp, impatient, as always. The power company called. This month's bill hasn't been paid. What's going on? No concern, no mention of what he'd said when I called about Mom's birthday. I listened, turned off the screen, and set the phone face down on the table. And just like that, I stayed silent until Susan's birthday. Her birthday was 3 weeks after David told me not to come home. The party went on as planned, her favorite roasted chicken, cake from her favorite bakery, close relatives around the dinner table. Everything perfect, except I wasn't there. That afternoon, at exactly 4 p.m., I was in my living room, holding a cold coffee, when my phone buzzed. It was Susan calling. I stared at her name on the screen, then set the phone down. I didn't answer, didn't even hesitate. David called next, then Lauren. 3 calls in under 10 minutes. I let them all go. No curiosity, no need to respond. I sat there, leaning back in my chair, staring out at the foggy window. The sky was a dull gray, no rain, just that quiet, creeping cold that feels like winter brushing your doorstep. The text started coming about 10 minutes later. Susan first, Ethan, the power's out. The whole house is dark. Please pay the bill. I read it silently. No anger, no surprise, just a calm hollowness in my chest, the kind you feel when you've carried a family for years, and you're the only one left holding the weight. Then David, no water. We can't cook. Handle it now. Then Lauren, internet's down. Guests are arriving. Please fix this urgently. I glanced at the clock, 5:12 p.m. I remembered clearly, I'd cancelled all automatic payments 3 weeks ago, right after David said not to call him my father. And now, in the middle of the birthday party they'd uninvited me from, everything shut down, power, water, internet. Each gone, right when they needed it most. I didn't text back or call. I didn't feel the need to explain. I just sat there, slowly turning the cold coffee cup in my hands, eyes fixed on the window, seeing past what was in front of me. In that moment, I realized they weren't calling because they missed me. They were calling because there was no one left to carry their burden. Around 6 p.m., my phone started buzzing again, nonstop. This time, it wasn't my parents or Lauren. It was relatives who only show up for holidays but feel entitled to judge. The texts came in waves. Some called me disrespectful. One said outright, "You embarrassed your mom in front of the whole family." Another, more subtle but just as cutting, "Your sister was right. People like you shouldn't show up on a happy day." I read each message without replying. Not because silence meant agreement, but because I was tired of explaining myself to people who always chose the louder crowd over what was right. I was about to set the phone down when it lit up again. My aunt, Patricia, the only family member who still checked in on me, was calling on an old video app we both used because we cared enough to look each other in the eye when it mattered. I hesitated, then answered on the second ring. Her face appeared, half lit by the yellow glow of their kitchen, a place I knew like the back of my hand, every crack in the wall, every creaky cabinet. But tonight, it felt different. In the background, I heard clinking silverware, awkward laughter, and scattered small talk. Patricia looked at me through the screen, her eyes warm but concerned. "You're not going to pay for it, are you, Ethan?" Her voice was gentle, testing the waters. I met her eyes, and when I spoke, my voice was slow, like I was pulling up something buried too long. "You know, Auntie, it was Dad who told me not to come. Said if I showed up, I shouldn't call him my father anymore." I swallowed hard. She went quiet, her eyes shifting like she was scanning the room behind her. Then the call erupted into chaos. I heard Susan's voice cut through, "Tell him I'm ashamed of him. On this day, of all days, how could he do this?" David's voice, sharp and loud, "It's not that serious. It's just paying a few bills. What kind of man gets petty over money?" Another voice, probably my uncle, "Poor Lauren, having to deal with a brother like that." Footsteps approached the camera. Lauren appeared behind Patricia, arms crossed, lips twisted in annoyance. He even picked up the call. "Mom's been crying all day. Does he even care? Seriously, no shame at all." I didn't say a word. I just watched, silent, like it was the only way to shield myself. I was about to end the call when another face appeared on the left side of the screen. A young guy, neatly combed hair, dark suit, looking at me with confusion, then a hesitant smile. "Hey, boss," he said, his voice scratchy, like he wasn't sure the words belonged here. I froze. My eyes locked on the screen, and I instinctively pulled the phone closer. I hadn't expected this. Not here, not on the night they all thought I was too embarrassing to invite. I stared at him, and it clicked. His face, his voice, he was one of the new hires, recently transferred from our southern branch. We'd exchanged a few emails, and he'd sent me 2 reports, but I had no idea he was Lauren's boyfriend, the important manager everyone was so impressed by. The room behind Patricia seemed to hold its breath. I saw her glance over her shoulder, and the kitchen exploded into frantic whispers. Someone said, "Wait, what did he just call Ethan?" Another voice, confused, "Boss? Does that mean Ethan's his boss?" The whispers grew, overlapping, uneasy, like a wave building. And me? I just stared at the screen. No nod, no denial, just waiting to see where this went. The guy, Tyler, stood straighter, looked past the camera to the room, and spoke clearly, "In case you didn't know, I work at Pacific Green Tech. Mr. Ethan's one of the company's co-founders." His words were sharp, loud enough to cut through the clatter of dishes and murmurs, and the room fell into an eerie silence. Not awkward, just stunned. I pressed my lips together, gave a slight nod of confirmation. Tyler looked back at the screen, eyes wide, and I said, calmly, evenly, like the words had been waiting, "Hope your big introduction goes perfectly." Then I hung up. That night, I slept soundly. No tossing, no waking up with old questions looping in my head. For the first time in years, I felt light, not from satisfaction, but because they finally saw who I was. The next morning, before the sunlight fully hit my curtains, I checked my emails as usual. Meeting reminders, a few accounting notes, and then a name I didn't expect, Tyler Kane. I opened it. The first line hit me, "I'm sorry. I didn't know you were Lauren's brother." I raised an eyebrow, leaned back against my pillow, and kept reading. Tyler wrote that he was genuinely shocked to learn I was Lauren's brother. Then, no sugarcoating, he said, "I didn't expect her to be like that. I'll be ending things with her. Thank you for not putting me on the spot in front of everyone." I set the phone on my chest, closed my eyes for a moment. It took me a few minutes to open the inbox again and type a reply, slow, clear, no fluff. "Tyler, that's your call. I don't expect anyone to make decisions to stay in my good graces. Think carefully before you act." And for the record, I don't bring family into the workplace. I hit send. No more thought, no lingering emotion. That was enough for me. Some things, once made clear, don't need more. Around 10 a.m., during a break from a meeting with department heads, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was Lauren. I stared at her name for a few seconds, then hit decline. Not out of anger, not to prove a point, but because I was done with apologies that only show up after everything falls apart. 5 minutes later, a text, "I'm sorry. I didn't think Tyler would change like that. You're his boss. If you said something, I'm sure he'd listen. Please talk to him. Ask him to come back to me." I walked to the hallway window, leaned against it, and read the message again. Then I typed, not too long, not too short, just enough for her to get it. "Tyler didn't leave because I told him to. He left because of how you live, how you treat people, how you look down on what you don't understand, and how you think a soft voice can steer anyone." I hit send, pocketed the phone, and went back to my desk. Less than a minute later, another text, "I know I messed up. This time I mean it. I'll change. Please believe me. Just this once." I read it, sat with it, and nothing stirred inside me. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally understood, sometimes the gap between two people isn't in the apology, it's in when it arrives. I deleted the message, left nothing behind, and went back to my life. A week later, on a Friday afternoon, I froze on my porch as I came home from the garage. David and Susan stood at my front door, each with a small suitcase, faces worn from the long drive. I didn't ask why they were there or if they'd come all this way to see me. It wasn't a casual visit. I opened the door and let them in, no tension, no forced politeness, just a simple choice. I didn't want that conversation on the porch with the wind picking up. We sat in the living room, tea still steaming on the table. David spoke first, his voice softer than usual, an apology. Susan chimed in, saying they'd thought things over, that maybe they'd gone too far, that it shouldn't have come to this. I stayed quiet, didn't interrupt, just listened to see if this was the end of something or the start of something else. And, as expected, David's tone shifted. "We're family, Ethan. And family helps each other. We raised you, sent you to school. Everything you have now, part of it comes from us, right?" Susan jumped in, her voice soft, like she was saying something reasonable. "If you could send us about $2,000 a month, just a little support. It's not much for someone like you." I looked at the two people in my living room, the same ones who'd uninvited me from a family event because I was an embarrassment. Now they were here, putting a price on their apology, $2,000 a month, because I was their son, because my success was a debt I owed them. I let out a quiet chuckle, not loud, not snarky, just the kind you let slip when someone tells you a story that doesn't add up. I looked at them, their eyes locked on mine, waiting for me to agree. But I wasn't angry. I'd come too far for that. I leaned back in my chair, voice calm and clear. "What about Lauren? How much is she contributing each month?" The room seemed to freeze. The air tightened. David glanced at Susan, who answered slowly, her voice dropping, "Your sister's job is still unstable. And the breakup with Tyler has been hard on her." I nodded, unsurprised. Same old excuses, wrapped in sympathetic words, but just deflections. I looked at them squarely and said, "If Lauren agrees to pay you $2,000 a month, I'll match it. No more, no less." They stared, trying to gauge if I was serious. I continued, still calm, "Or, if you want me to cover the full amount, I'll need something in writing, a legal agreement stating that after you both pass, the house is mine, fully." I sat still, no pressure, no further explanation, just waiting to see how they'd react now that I was setting terms for something they always assumed was my duty. The room fell into a heavy silence. David shot to his feet, slamming his hand on the hardwood table, tipping the teacup and spilling tea down the side. His shout filled the room, chest heaving. "You're setting conditions on your parents? We raised you for over 20 years, and now you're nickel-and-diming us? What kind of life are you living?" His voice was so loud, I wouldn't be surprised if the neighbors heard. I didn't flinch, didn't move. I sat there, hands on the chair's armrests, eyes fixed on him, not cold, but no longer soft. I waited for him to finish, then stood slowly. My voice came out low, calm, but sharp enough to cut through his outburst. "I think you both should leave my house." Not a threat, not in anger, just a request from someone who'd reached the limit of what respect could offer. No one said another word. Just the sound of suitcases dragging across the hardwood and the door clicking shut behind them, quieter than everything they'd left inside me. It's been 2 years since I last saw them, right here in my home. I didn't block their numbers, change my email, or cut them off completely. I just stopped reaching out and waited. Waited to see if they'd still consider me family without the shadow of duty hanging over me. In 2 years, no call, no text asking how I'm doing, no mention of birthdays or health, Not even a simple, "How are you?" I used to think they'd change someday. Now I know not everyone does, especially those who never see they were wrong to begin with. I still live here, work, go through my days. The only difference is I no longer let myself be an emotional ATM, giving and breaking under the weight of obligation. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that family isn't where people demand kindness and call it love. Real family is where you're valued for who you are, not what you can offer, not as a wallet, a backup plan, or a last resort when everything else fails. Before I wrap this up, I've got a question for you. Was I wrong to refuse to go back, to refuse to pay my parents $2,000 a month, even though they're older now and raised me? I used to think family could fix anything, but after being treated like a stranger in my own home more times than I can count, I chose to stand up and break the cycle. Was I too cold? Or was I finally learning to value myself at the right time? Please share your thoughts below. I really want to hear, whether you agree or not. If this story hit home, subscribe to support the channel. There are more stories waiting to be told and heard. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for staying till the end. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.